All right, what's up, everyone? It's Tuesday, January 20th. Hope you enjoyed your 3-day weekend. We welcome you to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Today on the show, winners and losers from the divisional round. CJ Stroud becoming the first player ever with 5 or more interceptions and 5 or more fumbles in a single postseason, according to the Associated Press. And that's in only 2 games. And that's really hard to do. Obviously, Bo Nix is out for the season, and they'll go with Jarrett Stidham in Denver this week against the Patriots. We've got some coaches getting hired. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Zach Charbonnet injury and Ken Walker with a huge opportunity against the Rams this week, as he just went for 35.5 PPR fantasy points. And that was a long intro. I'm Adam Azer. Hey, Dave Richard.
What's going on, Adam?
Yeah. I'm more angry today than I was yesterday. Yesterday, I was just like, you know what? It was a great season. Good for them. Today, I'm like, we should have won. What a terrible throw.
We were one throw away from the national championship. Before we went on the air, Adam and I dissected the last play of the game. The coach's film was already out on it. And if Carson Beck throws that ball into the end zone, the Canes are national champions.
Well, I think I didn't say that.
I said that.
I think there's too much. I think that it would have been even worse if he had made a good throw there, because they score a touchdown maybe, and then they left too much time for Mendoza, and then they
possible. It's really true.
Game-winning field goal. They needed to run it down to like 15 seconds left.
Yeah, I agree, but getting a touchdown with any time left is better than throwing a interception on an underthrown ball where your receiver had no idea it was coming. So that's how it goes. Hey, Indiana is a good team, by the way.
They are.
I mean, what am I saying? They're undefeated. Of course, they're a good team. But their running back, last name Black.
Yeah.
I'm drafting him. I can't wait for him to go to the NFL. He is going to be awesome for fantasy.
What's up, Jamie?
Sorry, guys.
Yo,
Feel free.
Don't be sorry. It's okay.
Yeah, I meant to ask.
It's not okay. It's really not okay. But
you know what? Let me do some quick fantasy questions. Then I have a question for Jamie. All right, here we go. Quick fantasy questions, or NFL questions. Sorry, NFL. Should the Texans find a new quarterback for 2026 and beyond?
2026, no. Beyond, potentially.
Yes. Good answer. Good answer.
Okay.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, CJ Stroud, actually looking at it now, he wasn't having a great fantasy season, but he really didn't have that bad of a regular season. Pretty cautious. Get the numbers here. CJ Stroud was the number 21 quarterback overall, but for the season, 8 interceptions in 14 games. Not great. On pace in his healthy games is on pace for just under 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 picks, and 272 rushing yards. Not that bad. 12 games that he didn't leave early. All right, that's question number 1. Number 2, does Denver have a chance this weekend with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback?
No.
Small chance.
Mm-hmm. And question number 3, can we reflect on, because you're coming off these pretty bad games for RJ Harvey, who did a nice job as a receiver, TreVeyon Henderson, and Woody Marks.
Mm-hmm.
Can we reflect on how disappointing this rookie class has been? The best per game finish for this ballyhooed rookie running back class is Ashton Genty at RB 16 per game. Then you have Harvey at 24 per game. Oh, you know what? No, I'm sorry. I forgot about Scadaboo and Hampton because they missed some time. Scadaboo RB 10 per game. Hampton RB 13 per game. But overall, those guys were not top 30 guys. Genty, RB 16 per game. Harvey, 24 per game. Henderson, 25 per game. Judkins, 26 per game. Marks, 39 per game. I mean, you got Bill, you got Monangai. They were fine. Caleb Johnson didn't even see the field. Jamie, this was a disappointing year for the rookie running back class, which looked like it was going to be, a huge factor in fantasy.
I think overall you're right. Yes, it was disappointing because there were a lot of high expectations for the majority of the season. I think we certainly got some great moments from those guys and some potential league winning moments from those guys. RJ Harvey was definitely a great fantasy running back in the fantasy playoffs. TreVeyon Henderson had some monster games, especially when there was no Ramondre Stevenson, which, I don't think we took into account how good Stevenson could be down the stretch and, not helping Henderson live up to the expectations, certainly that I had for him. Genty was a good fantasy option. He just did not play up to the expectations of where we were drafting him. And then Scatterboot, that 6-game stretch where he was the guy for the Giants, he was averaging over 19 PPR points per game.
Mm-hmm.
Hampton, same thing. When he came back from his injury, he had some very good moments. So there were certainly pockets of, great performances from those guys. But sure, overall, it was certainly disappointing. I think if we had Hampton healthy for the full season, if Scatterboot was healthy for the full season, maybe we look at it a little differently because we might have had 2 studs, and then Genty being a good fantasy option, and then Harvey the way he closed. So it's going to be a big point of evaluation. The last mock draft review that I did of the half PPR one, I like to kind of look at some of the buzzworthy things that we're going to be talking about. And one of those I think is going to be where do those sophomore running backs get drafted and how soon, so I don't really love where Henderson's going right now. To me, I think Jacob took him around 3 in the half PPR mock. I think he might have been around 3 in the full PPR one too. It's tough, to justify taking him that early since Ramondre Stevenson's under contract through 2028.
Yeah, Ramondre Stevenson signed a 4-year, $36 million extension in 2024 with the Patriots. Okay, and he's been much better than him lately. That's for sure. For the season, you look at just the games where they both played, almost identical numbers basically. 156 carries for Stevenson, 154 carries for Henderson. They averaged 4.7. For Stevenson, 4.5 yards per carry for Henderson. Henderson, you know how it was though. He was either hitting home runs or not hitting a lot at all. Stevenson in the games they played together, Stevenson did have 12 more catches and a heck of a lot more receiving yards than TreVeyon Henderson. All right, we got a lot of coaching news, so let's get to that. Before we do that, there are a lot of other podcasts that you're going to want to listen to on CBSSports.com. Go to CBSSports.com/podcast. See our full menu of podcasts. FFT Dynasty, great time to be listening to FFT Dynasty. Heath is doing a startup Dynasty mock draft today that we're all taking part of. So you can either actually watch that, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. You can see all the Dynasty shows, but also just listen to that podcast and all of our others. Okay, news and notes. Dave, what's the biggest head coaching headline since last we spoke?
There's a bunch. I'm intrigued by Stefanski going to Atlanta and what he might be able to do to jumpstart that offense. Certainly it's an upgrade for them there. I don't want to focus on the negative, but what are the Lions doing? Getting Drew Petzing to be their offensive coordinator. If they're going to stick with Dan Campbell as the play caller, then I'm okay with it. But I don't feel good about that one based on what we know about the Cardinals with Petzing the last few years that he's been there. That would be the one that I would look at and kind of scratch my head and say, okay, well, maybe this is a good thing for Sam Laporta. Hopefully Laporta's fine to start the season because we know that Petzing kind of comes from that group of coaches that likes to lean on the tight end. But if it's good for Laporta, what does that mean for Jameson Williams? It's rare when Jameson and Laporta both had big games in the same week. And I'm not inspired by Petzing. I don't know if that team would be inspired by Petzing. I'm interested to see where the Lions go with it, but it makes me a little bit nervous.
I would say first off, the biggest news is McDermott getting fired. So that was probably the one that was okay. I thought if they lost in the first round, maybe how they lost in the divisional round with the turnovers and certainly the calls and the interception or maybe interception.
It was an interception.
That was an interception.
Really, you don't think so?
I don't know. I think he was down by contact.
Pretty well.
So, but anyway, I mean, it's we spend weeks on that as the NFL will prior to the owners' meetings. I think in the case of the Lions, Dave's definitely right. It doesn't feel like it's inspiring. However, when they had a pocket passer and what it did for Trey McBride and what it did for Michael Wilson and what it did for Jacoby Brissett, and now you ramp that up from a talent standpoint because he really didn't have that type of talent in Arizona that he has now in Detroit. I want to be a little bit more optimistic about it. So I think really anybody stepping into this situation was going to be like, okay, can they make this work? And that's really the question. Can Petzing make this work? I thought deserves a little bit of a pass on the Cardinals offense with Jacoby Brissett versus the Cardinals offense with Kyler Murray. And certainly the Cardinals offense with Brissett is more, I think, comparable to what he's stepping into with the Lions.
They led the NFL in pass attempts last year. Just the resume for Petzing. 2 years where they had a pretty bad offense, 2023 and 2025. 2024, I think they were 13th in scoring in Arizona. They had a decent season there. Tight end led the team in receiving all 3 years, was Trey McBride all 3 years. And as Dave mentioned, Petzing, he was a tight ends coach with Cleveland and then a quarterbacks coach with Cleveland before becoming the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals. So he does have this kind of tight end background. Yeah, McDermott fired. You got Kevin Stefanski going to Atlanta and keeping their defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich. You've got Detroit getting Drew Petzing as the offensive coordinator. Green Bay giving Matt LaFleur a contract extension. Tennessee hiring 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh. He's their new head coach. He was the Jets head coach. And with the Jets, he brought over Mike LaFleur from San Francisco to be their offensive coordinator for 2 seasons. It didn't work out. But, we like seeing guys from San Francisco, from the Rams, becoming offensive coordinator. Sometimes it really works out. It didn't work out there against the Jets. Then he brought in with the Jets. Then he brought in Nathaniel Hackett, and that didn't work either. The Dolphins hired Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley as their new head coach. The Chiefs, looks like Matt Nagy could have a new job. Their offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, could have a new job soon. So they're bringing back Eric Bieniemy, who was the Bears running backs coach, to be their offensive coordinator, but we know that's Andy Reid there calling plays. And yeah, Buffalo fired Sean McDermott, promoted GM Brandon Beane to president of football operations. Jamie, was an interception. I think the best way that I saw it explained was by Gene Steratore, who said, if the defender hadn't been there and Brandon Cooks had made that play, gone to the ground, and then the ball had come out and he didn't survive the ground, then I think we'd all look at it and go, oh, that's an interception.
If the defender hadn't been there,
if the defender hadn't been there, it would have been an incomplete pass.
No, sorry. It would have been an incomplete pass if he had not survived the ground. It wasn't when his knee was down. He had to survive the ground. And everybody's going, what about the Davante Adams play? The way I interpreted it,
you mean the same exact thing? Okay,
no, the way I interpreted it, similar thing, yeah. And I could see you saying that. And I agree. It's certainly similar. Is that Adams did more before that knee was down, and he completed the catch. Cooks did not complete the catch at any point. That's the way it was explained. That's the way I interpreted it, at least. And I happen to agree with it. Some people are like, clearly these were the right calls, and some people are saying clearly these were the wrong calls, or these were the same thing. So I know it's tough. I know it's tricky, but that's how
it's all based on whether or not you thought Cooks caught it. And if you think Cooks caught it, then of course you think it's a completion.
Well, also how much of the defender's hands in there made a factor of him bobbling the ball.
Well, that doesn't matter, right? I mean, if he's bobbling, if he didn't complete the catch, if he didn't make his football move,
but his hands are on him when he has the football in his hands. That's the problem.
And then where did the football end up?
That doesn't really matter. He didn't have the ball long enough.
Okay, so I guess every play from moving forward, if the player's on the ground and the defender comes and rips the ball out of his hands, it's now taking away from him.
No, because
that's what happened with Davante.
Right, exactly.
Which was the correct call.
Right, for Davante, but it wasn't the correct call for Brandon Cooks.
Exactly. Thank you.
He didn't have control of the ball.
He did no, but Jamie, I think that the way it was explained, whether you want to believe it or not, I'm not saying you're wrong. So a lot of people are on your side. The way it was explained is that Davante, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, Davante Adams did more before the ball was ripped out. He made a football move. He had the ball longer than Brandon Cooks, and that is why the plays were he made a football move.
Controlled the ball as he caught it and hit the ground.
The fact that they didn't take more time to review it was
that I agree with. They should have taken more time, but they would have come to the same conclusion.
I don't know about that.
I do. I just don't think that he had. It's unpopular. I get it, and in a way, I kind of wanted to see Buffalo make that play, but the rules as they're stated, the play followed the rules as they were stated.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt too. That's exactly how I felt. Yeah, but it shouldn't be this cloudy. I guess I don't know if there's a way to avoid it, but.
Well, NFL's been dealing with the what is a catch question for like 15 years now.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going away, especially after plays like this.
It's okay. Dez caught the ball. We know.
Zach Charbonnet tore his ACL.
That's where it really started.
Zach Charbonnet tore his ACL, and we'll talk about Ken Walker as a winner soon. Seattle left tackle Charles Cross is day-to-day with a foot injury. He's been banged up, and he left last week's game. Bo Nix fractured his ankle. Jarrett Stidham's at quarterback. Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin. Bryant has a concussion, I believe, unless I'm switching it. Bryant concussion, Franklin hamstring. J.K. Dobbins could play this week. Houston head coach DeMeco Ryan said he wasn't sure if Joe Mixon's going to remain with the team. Ryan O'Halloran of the Florida Times-Union thinks that Travis Etienne is unlikely to be with the Jaguars in 2026. If you have Basil Tootin in Dynasty League, you might have a big opportunity next year.
Toot.
George Kittle said his Achilles tear was a best-case scenario in terms of the location of the tear, and it was a clean tear. So George Kittle's convinced he's going to beat the timelines and beat the expectations. Romo Dunze said his foot was an issue this year, but he will not need surgery. So we have to think about, Dunze was not 100% when he came back. Didn't come back for much, but not 100%. Aaron Rodgers, getting sort of conflicting reports, not expected to return to Pittsburgh, but the team really likes him. The players really like him. They might want him back. And I don't know, you guys feeling like, what's that?
He'll be in Minnesota.
Yeah. That's what Thomas wanted all along, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And do we feel like A.J. Brown is not going to be on the Eagles next year?
I mean, it's hard to say everything is going to be perfect right now, but again, let's see who they hire as their offense coordinator. Maybe that makes him happy. And obviously, whatever money situation that he's dealing with will make him happy too.
Who are the names that you've heard of that they've interviewed for that job, Jamie?
McDaniel.
Wow.
Did
Dable interview there?
Who?
Brian Dable?
I don't know if I've heard Dable there.
I think so. Yeah, I think McDaniel.
I think he and Sirianni are tight. If Dable doesn't go to Buffalo, I wonder if he goes to Philly, and I would love that. And I agree with you. I think if Philadelphia does the right thing at OC and they kind of just try and make everybody take a deep breath and chill out, they could run it back with this crew with a better play caller. Maybe we get results like 2024 and not 2025.
Maybe we'll take a break and think about it. Everybody think about it during the break. Winners and losers when we come back on Fantasy Football Today.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, here we go. Winners and losers from last week's games. 4 games. 28-16, Patriots over the Texans. 2017, Rams over the Bears in overtime. 41-6, Seattle over San Francisco. And 33-30, Denver over Buffalo. Jamie, your first winner was Ken Walker. And let's talk about the future here for the Seahawks now with Zach Charbonnet tearing the ACL. Walker has, 5 touchdowns in 2 games this year without Zach Charbonnet. When one guy gets this backfield, it's pretty special.
And you have to assume that they're going to try and re-sign him at this point, because who knows when Charbonnet will be ready to go in 2026, if he's ready to go at all, just given the nature of when the timeline is. We don't know exactly the extent of his, ACL tear. Hopefully it's similar to George Kittle that he'll beat the timeline. A different injury, though. But I think just in the case of Walker, if they can get him at the right price, makes sense. He's familiar with the system. Obviously, they had a great run as a team. We'll see where they end up. Might be Super Bowl champions. And so he's probably going to have an opportunity for a big game. We know the Rams' run defense hasn't been great. And so, like you said, whenever there's been one guy in this backfield, it's been a pretty special situation. So you got to be happy as a dynasty manager. If you have Ken Walker, you got to be really upset as a Charbonnet manager because, we talked about this with some of the mock draft reviews. We were under the assumption that there was a chance Charbonnet could be the lead running back for Seattle and the situation would be reversed for 2026. So we'll see what happens. Charbonnet is with the team for 2 more seasons, or 1 more season, excuse me.
1 more.
2026.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens in terms of his recovery. Hopefully he's, back and ready to go, but just really sucks for him and, very good situation for Ken Walker right now.
All right, we'll get to a couple of quarterback winners in just a minute, but I want to tell you all to bring your playoff energy to your pro football bets all season long with the Pro Football Boost Pack from BetMGM. It gives you 3 ways to boost your payout on a winning bet. Just log into your BetMGM account to receive your boost pack and then place any pro football bet and apply one of the tokens. Make sure to bet up to the minimum stake, odds, and legs specified on the token. If your boosted bet hits, you'll score a bigger payout. From opening kickoffs to game-winning drives, This Pro Football Boost Pack is your ticket to unforgettable moments this season. Don't wait on the sidelines. Join the action with BetMGM. Caleb Williams and Drake Maye are fantasy winners. Caleb Williams has now scored 20.3 or more fantasy points in 6 straight games. And he's actually thrown the ball a ton lately, 42 or more passes in 3 of his last 4 games. So he ends the season, red hot, basically. That's
All right, wait. Stop before what you're about to say. Stand up.
No.
Stand up.
I'm wearing sweatpants, Jayden.
That's fine. Stand up. Take a bow.
Yeah.
You're correct. Best arm in the NFL.
Wow.
Except I got to look at it again. But they keep saying that the ball traveled 51 yards in the air. Wasn't that like 56 yards in the air? Or 55 yards in the air? I don't know. I'm going to look at it again.
Talking air yards or like trajectory and angle?
No, air yards, right? So he throws it exactly from the 40, and it's caught up 5 or 6 yards deep in the end zone. Okay, so 40. Sorry, so it's 40, 46. Right. So why are they saying 51? I don't get that. All right. Anyway, pretty crazy throw for him. Drake Maye's another winner here, but Jamie, what do you want to say about Caleb?
I mean, it's really not that they're winners in terms of anything is changing. I think it's just more confirmation. Like, these are going to be really great fantasy quarterbacks in 2026. And, it's just awesome to watch these guys play, and they do enough with their legs. The receiving cores are certainly going to be in good shape. I hope the Patriots add another receiver to maybe replace Diggs or upgrade over Diggs, however you want to phrase it, just because he's getting older. But I mean, these guys are just fun. Like, they're really just fun. And, in the case of both, I don't think anything's going to change. I can't imagine that Josh McDaniels getting any head coaching jobs next year. We know that Ben Johnson's not going anywhere. Their play callers are going to be the same, so good offensive lines. Bears are going to need to get a little bit younger to keep this, line continuing to be at a high level. Patriots are continuing to build it out. But I mean, my gosh, this is the next group, the next wave, the next Breeze, Rodgers, Brady, Manning. These guys have the ability to lead the way. When Jayden Daniels gets healthy, it's going to be fun. Just to continue to talk about these guys for several years to come. And I think they're going to still be good values on draft day. People are still going to chase Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, understandably so. You add another round or two, you get a Drake Maye, you get a Caleb Williams. Maye will go a little bit sooner than Williams, but you get these guys at I think great prices, and you're going to get great production. The way that Caleb Williams finished the season was awesome. The 2 playoff games and obviously the stretch run. Same with Drake Maye. It's just, and these guys they're just awesome.
Yeah, the one thing that could hold them back, though, is like Caleb Williams threw 3 picks in this game. Drake Maye has 6 fumbles in 2 postseason games.
So what?
Yeah, I'm less worried about Drake Maye's fumbles.
We're also talking about, in the case of Williams, like, it's a playoff game. It was in bad weather. These are great teams. Mm-hmm. I don't care if the Rams defense isn't as good as, let's say, Seattle's or whatever. They're still great teams, and for what it's worth, he's facing a great defensive coordinator too. It's not going to be like that on a week-to-week basis. The Packers just got worse. Their defense coordinator just left. There's going to be a lot of changes for the teams that they face in their divisions. They're going to get tougher in some cases too. But I mean, you're just starting to see what they're capable of doing. They haven't even reached their peak potential yet.
All right, I got a hot take on Drake Maye. By the way, someone's going to have to explain to me this 51.6 air yards, or 51.6 yards in the air when it was clearly a 46-yard throw. It must have to do with the angle. But we need to know, when we see this next-gen stats thing, we need to know what they're calculating here, okay? It's like, what is a catch? But for Drake Maye, so much of his fantasy value has been the fact that he has been this year, would you guys agree, the best deep ball thrower in football?
Like, he's one of them for sure.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that's I'm only saying this because he might be the number 2 quarterback he might be the number 1 quarterback for some people next year. It's a lot to ask with this receiving core for him to have to be this good. You know what I mean? Like, you like for things to be a little bit easier for Drake Maye, not to have to rely on that play to Kayshon Boutte. I mean, that happened so many times this year. And what if that goes away? I mean, CJ Stroud, I was just looking at CJ Stroud's numbers. 20 pass attempts of 20 or more air yards. In his rookie year, he threw 59 of them for over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's basically like barely eclipsed that in his last 2 years combined. So when you're that reliant on these incredible deep throws, it's not Drake Maye's fault. I understand he's one of the best quarterbacks in football, clearly, but his receivers stink. So if they don't really upgrade there, then I don't know. That's my concern, Dave, is that he's going to be drafted so high, and if he can't continue to throw these deep balls at an unbelievable level, it might be disappointing.
And yet, when he did throw deep balls, or he had the season where he threw a lot of deep balls, he threw for 4,394 yards, read that right, and only 31 touchdowns. I think there's room for him to get better. And I would expect, like Jamie said, for the Patriots to add something at wide receiver. Could it be a huge splash in the draft with one of the top receivers that's coming out? Yeah, it could be something like that. Could be a free agent. Maybe they're the team that trades for A.J. Brown. There's a number of ways the Patriots could try to go about improving their receiving core. Any improvement that they make improves what Drake Maye's expectations will be. And it's baked into my rankings a little bit because, I don't expect the Patriots to run it back with this exact group of receivers. I think they could actually move on from Stephon Diggs, find somebody else, and maybe even be better off for it. And that offensive line is only going to get better. The running game is what it is. And Maye is really talented. And throwing deep, that was one of the things that made him appealing in the draft process 2 years ago, was that he had a cannon for an arm. And on top of that he was a good anticipatory thrower. And we've seen those things come to life this season, a little bit less the season before. He builds on it. As long as you're not reaching for Drake Maye in drafts next year, he's going to be a fine pick.
You know, it makes a ton of sense just based on the type of player he is Alec Pierce. So much sense for that team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
A.J. Brown.
I mean, you'd like a receiver that can do it all. You don't necessarily want to have a receiver that's, just going to get 15-plus air yard targets.
Well, no, I think Pierce showed that his route tree can
I think it can.
It definitely did
Pierce, sure.
All right. And look, it's easy to say that Drake Maye is great. Just had to bring up another angle to it. He's obviously incredible. We've got Kayshon Boutte and Jayden Higgins. Jamie nominated Higgins as a winner. 10 targets in this game against New England, 11.9 PPR fantasy points. He also had Christian Gonzalez. He had a step or two on him for a potential big play, and of course it was badly underthrown. So Higgins and Kayshon Boutte was Dave's call, as he had 5 targets, 75 yards, and a touchdown on 3 catches. And Jamie, Higgins.
I think the Texans have their number 2 receiver, and we'll see how this all looks next season. But I mean, there was no Nico Collins, so that's the spike in targets. You understand that. But he had some very good moments in 2025 as a rookie and wasn't a full-time player. And I think he will be a full-time player next season. And just somebody that, we spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks, Parker Washington, Khalil Shakir, I'm trying to think who else was in that mix, Jacoby Myers maybe. Some of the teams that we were just talking about playoff wise and some of the exits. And I don't know if he's as, let's say, good as Washington could be because he didn't have those type of numbers. But certainly from a talent standpoint, if CJ Stroud can get any semblance of back on track, you'll like what Jayden Higgins can do, because I think CJ Stroud can still be a good deep ball thrower. There's just an easy type of this is the easy type of player to take once you get close to round 8 through 10. Depending on how receivers come off the board, depending on what the rookies look like, the free agency class, whatever. A good number 4 receiver to have on your team. I don't know if he'll ever be a consistent starter in 2 receiver leagues. I hope he'll be a starter in 3 receiver leagues, but can certainly work his way up that ladder as the season goes on, as he gets better in his sophomore year.
And I feel the same way about Boutte, that you could pick him with a late pick in fantasy, and hopefully he takes that step forward that we're talking about with Drake Maye. Obviously, Boutte is going to be contingent on what the Patriots do at wide receiver. If they make a big splash, that's going to be their number 1 guy. There won't be a question about who's number 2. The targets will be funneled to one guy, and then Kayshon Boutte will be kind of a boomer bust wide receiver. But if they don't make it that type of wide receiver opposite of Kayshon Boutte, look, we've seen enough of him this year. When he's had opportunities, his numbers have been great. He's had 5 games this year, Adam. It's only 5. It's a small sample size. 5 games this year with 5 or more targets. He's hit 13.5 PPR points in all 5 of those games. So if he does get more opportunities on a week-to-week basis, if his route tree develops, he's going into his 4th season. It's a contract year. He's only 24 years old. I think Boutte could be somebody who ends up being one of those late draft picks in fantasy that turns into a weekly starter, especially in those 3 receiver leagues, 2 receiver, 1 flex, 2 receiver, 2 flex type leagues. Somebody that you can draft late, get good value from.
Usually I sort wide receivers by 50 or more targets. Kayshon Boutte only had 46. So if I look at wide receivers with 40 or more targets, and we're talking about teaming up with Drake Maye, who's great at making these deep throws. Well, Jamie, Alec Pierce was number 1 among wide receivers in explosive play rate. Kayshon Boutte was number 2. So Boutte basically doing, Pierce or Alec Pierce type things, but with about half the targets. Okay. Honorable mentions as winners. Colston Loveland, I would have to say. He missed some of this game with a concussion. Didn't play in overtime, left in the 4th quarter, and he still had a 24% target share. He still had 10 targets, and this is with everybody healthy.
I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation. Who's tight end 3?
Yep.
For sure. And Kyren Williams, this was really interesting, right? He played a normal snap share. He's always around 62% of the snaps, but 21 carries for Kyren and 6 for Blake Corum.
Playoff time.
What's that? Yeah,
Playoff
but not last week. I mean, last week wasn't like that. Right, last week Kyren had how many did he have? I think he had 13 carries last week, and Corum had
in that
11.
neighborhood. Yes.
So it was just kind of interesting to see them go that way.
Yeah.
Kyren Williams, it's frustrating with Kyren, right? Because the way he's played, if there were no Corum, his 1st round pick next year, probably, right? Close to it.
And they're starting to settle into they have settled into using multiple running backs every single week and giving up the division of labor. And I think it continues next year. I think it's easy for them, especially now that they've got Kyren Williams signed.
Let's take a break. Losers, the rookie running backs, and CJ Stroud, Courtland Sutton after this.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it? Feels electric. Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
Who do you guys think is going to win the Super Bowl?
Rams.
Patriots.
I don't know. Broncos.
Wow.
No.
That would be a story.
No chance.
Jarrett Stidham would jump into the quarterback conversation for a lot of teams if that happened.
To be perfectly honest with you, I would probably have picked the Patriots to win even if Bo Nix were healthy. I don't really, maybe I'm crazy, but I just think that the Texans defense is so much better than every other defense. And the Broncos, sure. I know they have a great defense, but it's nothing like Houston's to me. It's just, and they have an amazing pass rush, but I don't know. They don't scare me. They don't really scare me that much as a defense. Like, it's very good, but it's not, if you're a good offense, I feel like you should do fine against them.
I think it's a 1 and 1A. I agree with you that Houston would be better. If I had to pick one, I would have picked Houston over Denver, but Denver's right up there. And the most underrated defense, maybe on the year, is New England's, especially once they got Milton Williams back. It's just such a difference maker for them. Their run defense has been great with Robert Spillane back. This defense is a lot better than people really realize.
Do you know how many rushing touchdowns they allowed to running backs with Williams on the field this year?
2.
Hey.
2.
Look at that. Caleb Williams' best arm, 2 rushing touchdowns. I'm feeling
you got the Williams market cornered. Everything about Williams, there's nothing that we can throw at you that you won't know about anybody with the last name Williams.
Yeah. Kyren.
Yeah, you got that too. Yeah, you're good.
There we go.
How many carries for Kyren this year, Adam?
For the season?
And postseason. Here, over under 313.
Under.
He's under 300.
Yeah, I was going to say 2, including postseason. I'll say
it's pretty close to 300. I'm not even going to.
I was going to say like 280.
Yeah, but like that's part of like how the Rams have gone about keeping him healthy and active. Like it's definitely something that A, I think they're going to keep doing, and B, the rest of the league is going to emulate. And that kind of sucks for us in fantasy because we want to have running backs that get all the work and handle it all and do well with it. And I don't know how many of them we're going to get.
Okay, losers. So we have TreVeyon Henderson, who had 12 carries for 25 yards, 1 catch for -2 yards against Houston. after 9 carries for 27 yards against the Chargers. Ramondre's just been playing a lot better than him lately. Woody Marks had a great game last week against Pittsburgh. 19 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. This week against this great Patriots run defense, 14 carries for 17 yards, 2 catches for 19 yards, and a fumble. He averaged 3.6 yards for the season. RJ Harvey, 6 carries for 20 yards against Buffalo. Now, to be fair, Buffalo's run defense, I want to say something like 6 of their last 8 games, they've been pretty good. So I don't know if it's the same matchup we thought it was. But Harvey was bad against Buffalo. He was 15 carries for 28 yards against the Chargers in Week 18. So those 3 rookie running backs, TreVeyon Henderson, Woody Marks, RJ Harvey, pretty big letdowns. At least Harvey had 5 catches for 46 yards. Dave, your thoughts?
I'm nervous about these rookie running backs as we move forward. Speaking of running backs that can get 300-plus touches, I'll start with Woody Marks. He had 3 games all year with over 100 total yards. He had 81 or fewer in every other game. And granted, he wasn't the lead running back or even like on the field a lot for Houston to even begin the year. But he was rarely the main guy, and he was barely even used inside the 5. He had 10 touches all year inside the 5, 1 since Week 13. He had 3 runs all year of 20-plus yards. That's over 200-plus carries, none longer than 23 yards. I think there's a chance he's the 1B running back for Houston. And as of now, I'm not going to get overly excited about Woody Marks for fantasy in 2026. I want to be excited about RJ Harvey and TreVeyon Henderson. I love them as talents, but their teams kind of hold them back a little bit. We already talked about TreVeyon and the workload split between him and Ramondre. Adam, you talked about how it's almost 50-50. It's practically 50-50 as far as carries go when both those guys are healthy. I don't see that changing. And I agree that this week I took TreVeyon out of my top 12. I took RJ Harvey out of my top 12 for 2026. I just think there's going to be too much splitting between those 2 guys because those teams don't need to overwork them unless there's an injury or something like that. And then we know it's to the moon with them. Harvey especially, I was very surprised that Denver didn't run the ball much against Buffalo. We've been talking about Buffalo's run defense for weeks and weeks, how bad they've been, and Denver didn't really try and capitalize on that. Neither did Jacksonville the week before. So I'd like to talk to some coaches this offseason about that and ask them why that's the case, why they don't see the same stats we see and try and take advantage of it. And Harvey just being so inefficient on the ground pretty much all year, but especially last week, kind of took the wind out of my sails on him. And it makes me wonder if Denver does do something to add another running back or bring back J.K. Dobbins, and that takes Harvey out of the potential list of running backs that has 300-plus carries. We're going to have to think about these rookie running backs all off season long. And when it comes time to draft, we're just going to have to know, okay, do these guys have a chance at 300-plus carries? Do they have a chance at
carries
touches? Do they have the chance to get there? And if they do, great, draft them. And if not, man, let somebody else take them because they're going to be a sinkhole for your fantasy team.
I would just lower the threshold a little bit here. I mean, we certainly don't need 300-plus carries, right? So
fine.
Touches.
You want to make it 300 touches? That's
a
fair threshold.
I still think that's kind of high for a guy you're taking in the 1st or 2nd round. Yeah. For a guy who could just be really good for fantasy. The question is how many of those touches are catches? Because if RJ Harvey is going to get, if he's going to have a catch
like
season,
4 or 5 catches a game, he kind of does the Kamara thing a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'd be nice, but I don't know if he's going to get a lot of carries from week to week. Do we still love him if he's going to get, if he's going to Rashad White it and get 5 carries and 5 catches every week? That's good. I'm going to be happy to have him. I'm not taking him with a top 30 or 40 pick, I don't think.
Yeah, it's also so frustrating that, look at ESPN run block win rate. Broncos were 4th, right? They have a great offensive line, and he averaged 3.7 yards per carry this season, and J.K. Dobbins averaged, I think, about a yard more. Let me just tell you real quick here. J.K. Dobbins averaged 5 yards per carry. 5 yards per carry. And they had basically the same amount of carries. 153 for Dobbins, 146 for Harvey. 5 yards per carry for one of them, 3.7 for the other. That's concerning. Obviously, he's a rookie. Christian McCaffrey had a low yards per carry as a rookie. Le'Veon Bell, bad yards per carry as a rookie. So we're not closing the book. But he's not doing much to go into 2026 as their lead running back. Courtland Sutton. I put him as a loser here. I'm just disappointed in the way this season has ended for Courtland Sutton. You could look at week 18 and throw it away because we didn't play fantasy, but they played week 18. They played against a Chargers team that was sitting starters, and he had 2 targets in that game. He had 9 targets against the Bills in a 33-30 game. Courtland Sutton had 9 targets, which is great, but 2 wide receivers left in the first quarter for them. And he had 4 catches for 53 yards. So he's just kind of ending the season on a poor note. Week 17 was bad. Week 18 was horrible. First game of the playoffs was very disappointing as well. And then I look at his, he's had 3,000-yard seasons, Courtland Sutton. 2019, 13.8 PPR fantasy points per game. 2024, 13.9 PPR fantasy points per game. 2025, 12.8 PPR fantasy points per game. He's never finished higher than 21st per game in PPR. Jamie, is there more for Courtland Sutton, or is this who he is?
This is who he is, and he's not getting younger. And the Broncos continue to build out their receiving core. So I think you just know what you're getting. You get to that round 4 spot, and you're looking for a good number 2 receiver. Maybe at best he gets to be in the top 15-ish range. But I think you just know you're getting a top 20 guy that if you have a solid number 1 receiver, if you go receiver heavy, he's your number 3. I don't mind players like this at all, especially if Bo Nix continues to progress. Now, you could make some cases for and against Bo Nix progressing or taking a step backwards. There's certainly evidence of both at times this season, but he's still going to be their lead receiver unless they make a huge splash this offseason. I think, again, you look at the Pat Bryant pick this year, Troy Franklin the year before, this is kind of, I think, where they are. They made the big offseason move to go get Evan Ingram. It failed. The whole Joker role never materialized for him. He obviously is another player that's getting older and may get replaced. I think you just know what Courtland Sutton is. So if you're drafting him to be your number 1 receiver, you better have a great running back, tight end, running back core, tight end, and quarterback to draft Courtland Sutton first. But, in terms of what he is, where you should be drafting him, what your expectations are, I think number 2 receiver makes a lot of sense.
Target per route run rate was really disappointing, but it kind of always is. 20% target per route run rate. And I don't know if you all remember, we were talking about this, I don't know, a month and a half ago or so. There were 2 guys, Courtland Sutton and T. Higgins. They were really at the low end of target per route run rate for fantasy wide receivers that we were starting. You don't want to be at 20%. Last year, Courtland Sutton was at about 23%, 22 to 23% target per route run rate. But most of the time, most of his career, he's been about 20%. And if it's 20% again, then he's just not going to be that good for fantasy. I mean, what he was this year, 12.8 PPR fantasy points, wide receiver 22 per game, which, by the way, most years, 12.8 PPR fantasy points is not a top 24 wide receiver. It's closer to 30. But yeah, that target per route run rate, 20% down from 23% the year before. It's just, that was disappointing. In fact, Troy Franklin had a higher target per route run rate. Marvin Mims was just behind Courtland Sutton in target per route run rate. Pat Bryant, 17%. And then there's CJ Stroud is another guy that I nominated as a loser. We already talked about him. I don't really know. He's not as bad as what we saw on Sunday. Bad conditions, horrible game, no Nico Collins. But I think the question for Stroud is he just holding Nico back? Is he the reason why Nico Collins can't be a fantasy superstar, Dave?
No, I don't think that's it. I think there are some other factors that could come into play for why Stroud. I felt like he was pressing in the playoff game, and certainly like offensive line issues haven't helped him the last couple of seasons either. If I still think they've got to do the same thing I said last year. They have to shore up the offensive line. That was something that helped him in his rookie year. And then the other thing, and this is on him, I felt like as a rookie, he would be unconscious to pass rush pressure, and he would just make throws with dudes in his face. He saw it at Ohio State a bunch too, and he's regressed there over the last year. So something's gone on. They need to rectify that. And just, I don't know, is it a confidence thing? That's just something that the Texans have to address. Hopefully they have some continuity with their play caller and their offense, because I think what happened in 2024 might have messed him up a little bit too. But having Nico, having Jayden Higgins take the next step, we didn't talk about Jalen Noel. I think he's their slot receiver of the future. This is going to be an interesting receiving core. It's not going to be up there with the best in the league, but it's going to be interesting. And I think those guys can help Stroud be better. I should mention Dalton Schultz while we're at it too. I think there's potential for him to bounce back, but he needs that continuity and he needs to bring back that confidence that I think he kind of lost a little bit along the way the last couple of seasons.
It's also multiple offense coordinators since his rookie season too, so I just don't know if he's ever going to get back to that. Like that season, maybe the aberration, and this is who he is. He's just a guy that maybe just a guy, so good quarterback, not great quarterback. I think, we talked about this, Adam, in terms of like Jackson Dart, and the expectations for a great rookie season.
Yeah.
Going into year 2,
next.
And hopefully there's not a huge step back. I don't think that will be the case for Dart, so put him to the side. But in the case of Stroud, like we were drafting him top 5, top 6 quarterback in his sophomore season because, oh my God, look how great this was. And to your point, is he holding Nico Collins back? Nico Collins' best season of his career came with CJ Stroud, so maybe that's the case that Nico could be better more consistently or play at that level more consistently. But I just think you look at Stroud and there's going to be some really good games. There's going to be some really poor games. He's got to minimize the turnovers. It would be nice if he ran a little bit more. Definitely, as Dave said, the offensive line. But even when he was good in his rookie season, the offensive line was still never great. So he's always kind of had these underlying offensive line issues. I just think when you're looking at this passing attack, like it could be better. It could give you more. He could give you more. And it just feels like we're going to have that maybe until he ends up with one of these amazing offensive coordinators with an amazing offensive system, and they just allow him to get some of these easier throws where it's just, helps his numbers a little bit more.
Can I give you a stat from his rookie year? This is a fantasy stat, a fantasy average. He had 7 games with Nico and Tank Dell.
Yeah, I was about to say
they were playing. Hold on, let me finish this. They were playing at least 60% of the snaps each, 7 games. Yeah. And CJ Stroud averaged almost 28 fantasy points per game in those 7. So again, small sample size, but
that'd be great to get back.
When he went into that sophomore year with Nico, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs, and that was a receiving core that we were all hyped up about. And that was a big reason why we thought CJ Stroud was going to have a big year. And it didn't quite materialize to the level that we thought. Even in games with Nico, Diggs, and Tank, there were 4 of them. He didn't even average 18 fantasy points. It was weird. And so if they can rectify that in Houston, man, he's going to be awesome. But I think the only way this matters is A, super flex leagues, and B, when you think about drafting Nico Collins. And where's he been going, Jamie? Top 20 for sure in our draft so far.
He's a second round pick pretty consistently.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's probably where he's going to end up. And that's going to be the thought. That's going to be the biggest drawback to Nico Collins is, well, can he ever go and be one of the elite receivers in fantasy if CJ Stroud is his quarterback?
Well, that's it for the show. I had a question for Jamie. So I was thinking about yesterday. I was excited for the game, but I wasn't like so fired up. I couldn't really figure out why. I think it's because Fernando Mendoza is like a Sesame Street character. It's hard to root against him. And like, I don't hate Indiana. And when Miami beat Ohio State, I almost felt like that was they won their championship. But also I'm just older now, 41. So my question for Jamie was, how did the Gators winning the national championship last year in basketball compare to when they were winning in everything in the aughts with Joakim Noah and with Tim Tebow? Like, from your emotional standpoint, how did those stages of your life compare?
I just experienced it differently, because I was at the basketball championship with my kids and they had gotten so wrapped up into it. And so to watch them enjoy it and to watch them celebrate it and to watch them be able to, hopefully go there one day. I don't know if that's in the cards, but, to see them, sort of enjoy that moment. And I think, they're still relatively young. My oldest is 13. But they're still, I think watching myself and my wife, who also went to Florida, oh my God, we're here. We did it. I was, obviously it was tough for me yesterday because I love you guys. I have a lot of friends that went to Miami, love them. and wanted them to celebrate the moment. Obviously, I don't love Miami anymore, and so rooting against them winning, so I was really torn. I was really hoping that, because I know Dave was there with his family, hoping he gets that moment of just being there and celebrating that with them, like just to get that experience. And obviously for you guys to, have that. And, so it was mixed emotions. My kids were like, "Oh yeah, Miami lost." The two that were awake last night. And I was like, I don't feel like that anymore. When I was younger, I was like, "Oh yeah, thank God Miami lost. I don't have to listen to all that crap." But I was really hoping for you guys. Like as you get older, your perspective changes on things. You want to see the people that you care about, and I know you guys know what I'm going through a little bit right now. So, like, you want to see the people that you care about, celebrate those moments. And again, for me, it was I was honestly, Dave, I know, was there with his kids. I have another good friend that was there with his son, and I was just those were the two people. And seeing a lot of Facebook messages of people there and whatever, social media messages. I was really thinking of Dave, and I was really thinking of my buddy, just hoping that they were gonna walk out of there 10 feet tall and got to see what you're hoping to see really your whole life.
Yeah, well, we should have. We had the chance. But I also just felt, I think it's because Dave, like, they were such big underdogs. I didn't really think they were going to win. And it just felt like they were playing with house money. I'm sure that, I don't know what I would compare it to, but if you went into a national championship game or a Super Bowl as a heavy favorite and you lost, that would be a much worse experience than, man, Miami just had this incredible season for the first time in 22 years. And yeah, they lost, but they fought so valiantly. So I don't know. I was not that upset. Of course, my son cried again. 2 weekends in a row.
Son cried. I cried.
Did you?
No.
I
did on the inside, but
I was okay.
Not on the outside. I'm going to put it in perspective. That's going to make you cry.
Oh, okay.
We were one drive and one throw away from being national champions. This was not playing with house money. When the Canes basketball team went to the Final Four and they played UConn, that was playing with house money.
That's a good point. Good point.
So this was not. And I'm talking with Canes fans walking into the game last night, and there wasn't a single Canes fan that was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to kick their butt and blow them out." But there also wasn't one that was like, "Well, I hope we compete and I hope we're good enough to run with Indiana." We all thought that we were going to beat at the end, and we were, and the fact that we didn't come through sucks, and it's going to sting for a long time.
When they had that false start on 2nd and 1, I was like, you guys are set up for it right here. You're set up for it right here. The fact that it's so funny because, like, I mean, obviously we watch a lot of football. We break down a lot of football. We talk about it all the time. But, like, it's not a small play. It's obviously not it's not a score. It's not a play that took away a score. It's not a stupid bad call and interception, which you guys are wrong about. But stuff like that. But you see that and you're like, uh-oh, okay, now they're in 3rd and long. Now they don't convert. They're going to kick a field goal. Miami's got a chance. They don't go 2nd and 1. They probably score a touchdown there. Changes a lot of probably the outcome from a betting perspective too.
Yeah.
But you know what? You had your shot. And I'm sure, Dave, you were probably at that moment, you get the ball back down 6.
I was Dr. Strange. I'm going.
Yeah.
There's only one way to go, one shot to go and do this.
I thought they were going to win.
And we almost did. And the fact that we almost did it's a shiv in my kidney. Mm-hmm. And I don't know when I'm going to have that feeling leave anytime soon. But I do have Peed power, baby. Peed power. We almost made it happen. And, I'll pose this question to all the Hurricanes fans that are watching. Do you believe in Mario now? And if the answer is yes, then our time is coming. And that's good. And we've all lost in life with our teams, whether it's fantasy teams or real life. When you've got that optimism moving forward, it makes it a little less painful. A little bit.
All right. Well, that's congratulations to Indiana, by the way. And their 16 million fans in South Florida and across the country. Jeez, impressive showing.
Not a single nasty one at the stadium, by the way.
That's
all
nice.
of them very friendly.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Miami fans were the same way. We'll talk to you all tomorrow with our top 12 tight ends for 2026. See ya.